Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. All right, so today we're going to cover the upcoming games for Sunday. Also want to go through news and notes, as well as the latest on the Packers injury front. So why don't we go ahead and start with that. We'll look at the injury report for the upcoming game. As for the Carolina Panthers, questionable. Trevin Wallace, linebacker. Nick Scott, safety. Taylor Moton, their tackle. Damian Lewis, guard. Andy Dalton, quarterback. Out. Cade Mays, their center. And Prince Umanmielen. So we talked about a lot of these guys when we went over the roster. It's worth pointing out a handful of details here. We'll kind of circle back to that after we talk about the Packers. But, I mean, these are, especially on the offensive line where they're already struggling, I mean, that's tough. For the Packers, Quay Walker and Brandon McManus are questionable. Nick Niemann, Lucas Van Ness, and Dontavian Wicks are out. So, as far as the Panthers, remember, the interior was kind of the question mark. And so, left guard Damian Lewis is a good enough player, especially on a good offensive line. I mean, he's a solid guy, but he's got an oblique injury and is questionable for the game. With Cade Mays out, you got Austin Corbett slotting into that center spot, but also it's a depth issue. They're running out of bodies. Then you got Taylor Moton with a knee injury. He is their right tackle. They're talking about him being a game-time decision, at least the last I saw. Presumably, if he can't go, you're looking at Yosh Nijman possibly starting in the right tackle spot. That is a big deal. Then they've got Umanmielen out, who is not a premier player, but remember, they don't have a lot of good players off the edge. They have like none. So not having anything and then losing that nothing, it's not great. With that said, it does look like Chandler Zavala is probably going to be playing, so they'll have a body back on the interior, which should be able to help them bolster a little bit. But that right tackle spot is a big question mark to keep an eye on for game time. All right. I don't know if I really want to dig too much into the news on all this nonsense with the trades. I did see, I think it was Diana Rossini put out an article about stuff that she was hearing, and there was just a small little tidbit in there about the Packers are calling about corners, but there's really nothing to it. I would spend a little bit more time kind of delving into it, only because one of the things, like I saw a lot of people like, oh, Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward is garbage right now. Like, he is awful. He's always been overrated, but he is playing terribly. And so all I'll say is when I kind of dove in and I was like, all right, who would I actually want to trade for? Here's part of the problem. And I know Packer fans aren't going to want to admit that this is the reality, but it is. If we're saying our corners aren't good enough, there's one major problem. If you're going to upgrade your corner group, first of all, if you look at PFF's cover grade, Carrington Valentine is the 8th highest graded corner with, where's our boy at here? Keyshawn Nixon at 44. That's a top 10 guy and a top 50 guy. First off, that is not a problem. But if we pretend that it is, and we say, okay, it's still not good enough, I want somebody better than Keyshawn, we need a top 10 and a top, 30 guy. How many top 30 corners do you think are available in a trade right now? Because here's the problem. Everybody that's on the list of like, oh, we should trade for this guy or this guy, they're worse than Keyshawn. Keyshawn has a 65 grade. If we're being serious about this, we're not going to trade somebody with a 65.5 grade for somebody with a 66 grade. That's not worth anybody's time. If you want to get all the way up to a 70, you're looking at the top 29 prospects. Of the top 29, how many of them are on bad teams that are old, that are kind of in a fire sale type of situation? It's not zero, but it's pretty close. So Tyreek Stevenson in Chicago, no. 2 Chargers corners, no. Isaiah Rodgers in Minnesota is not a good option because he's actually not good. He just had one game that was a 99, and that's why he's up so high. which is another problem when you look at the top 29 and the guys that are actually in that category. Some of them are not actually that good. It's just kind of an illusion. So there's really not even 30 that are worthwhile. Let's see. Jordan Lewis in Jacksonville, no. Dallas is not getting rid of anybody. Will Johnson is a rookie. Indy is not getting rid of anybody. Jarvis Brownlee for the Jets was just traded to the Jets, so I don't think he's being traded away. TJ Tampa, no. Chargers again, no. Brandon Stevens for the Jets. I mean, if they wanted to do it, sure. Okay, he's not on anybody's list, but I'd put him on mine, I guess. I don't know that they would do it. I would guess that they wouldn't. They just acquired him this year. He's also been bad his entire career, and he's kind of playing good for the first time, so I don't know if it's just a specific Jets thing, if it's a fluky thing. I don't really know. But I also don't think the Jets are going to get rid of somebody they just acquired that's playing really well. The heck would the point of that be? New England, no. New England, no. Tampa, no. LA, no. Kansas City, no. Houston, probably not. Seattle, no. Baltimore, no. Miami, hilariously, Rasul Douglas, having himself a bit of a resurgence, but kind of. The problem with Rasul, aside from the fact that he was really bad last year and he's old and he's already been here and there's probably some bad blood, extremely inconsistent. So you know how like Keyshawn had a really, really good game and then he had a bad game and now we all want him cut? Rasul's doing the same thing but worse. So his grades are like 40, 80, 60, 90, 60, 80, 40, 50, 60. Dude hasn't had a good game in 4 weeks. I'm sure people would love to trade for him because it's just different and it feels like you're doing something, but he's not giving you something better than Keyshawn is. Kansas City, no. Carrington Valentine, already on the team. Seattle, no. The Giants, would they trade Cordell Flott, the 24-year-old that's just now having his first kind of good season, but is also really inconsistent and we probably shouldn't consider it? Probably not. That's the other thing. We overvalue everybody else. There's almost nobody that's just consistently good all the time. Some of these guys just have such crap games. The Cordell Flott has only ever been bad. He's had like 3 or 4 good games on top of like 3 or 4 garbage games. And this is one of the top corners in football right now based on PFF grades. I think we're just overvaluing how good, like there are some really good corners. Of course, none of them are worth a trade. Everybody else is just kind of inconsistently getting the crap beat out of them all the time. Then you've got that DJ Turner guy who, as I said, absolutely, if he was willing to be traded, I would be interested, but I don't know why in the world the Bengals would trade him. He's a second-round pick in his 3rd year playing well. Well, the Bengals are bad. So what? Even if you're tearing down and rebuilding, this is a guy you rebuild with. He's 24. You don't need to get rid of him. It doesn't make any sense. Cooper DeJean with the Eagles. Yeah, right. Keep dreaming. The Colts. Yeah, right. Keep dreaming. Colts again. Keep dreaming. And then Tampa with Jamel Dean. Yeah, right. Keep dreaming. There's nobody. There is nobody available for trade that I think would be worth trading for. We want to trade for a corner because it just makes it feel like, oh, we need a corner because our corners are bad and we're actually trying to get a Super Bowl and so we have to do it. Who? That's the question. Who? Denzel Ward. Garbage. How about that Cam Taylor-Britt guy? Terrible. 55 grade, 84th ranked corner. He's benched right now. Dude, we're talking about trading for a guy that's currently benched. Well, maybe he just needs to change the scenery. Or maybe he's dog crap, and that's why he doesn't have a job right now. Good Lord. People just want to do stuff because they want to do stuff. Denzel Ward is ranked 93rd with a 52.9 PFF cover grade. He's dog crap. Tariq Woolen is 109th with a 47.5 cover grade. 109th out of 120 corners. That's what we need to do because Keyshawn had a bad day. We have a top 10 guy, a top 50 guy, and Bullard is playing some pretty good football, and we're going to whine about it because Keyshawn had a bad day, and we're going to go get one of the worst corners in football because we just want to do something. We got to stop. You can't just do something for the sake of doing something and feel like doing something makes you automatically better because at least we did something. We have to stop that mentality. Well, you can't just do nothing. Yes, you can if it's better than doing something. It's preferable, actually. Why would you do something if it makes you worse? Well, you gotta do something. You can't do nothing. Yes, you can. And you should. Actually consistently good corners in the NFL, there's probably 5 to 10 of them, and you're not getting any of them. So just stop it. Finally, I saw this, kind of got the gears turning a little bit. Ed Policy did the Policy's Perspective, which, again, I want to talk about the game, so I don't want to go through this a ton, but Zach Cruz pulled out this little quote here. Ed Policy with a uniform teaser. What if the Packers introduced a new alternate uniform that is not based on a historic uniform, but is inspired by one of the most unique and defining pieces of Packers history? Stay tuned. And I'm thinking, what the heck? What is that? What could that be? What is one of the most unique and defining pieces of Packers history? Most of the things I can think of are stupid. I mean, the one that everybody's mind goes to is cheese, but that doesn't really, first of all, that would look ridiculous. I mean, well, let's be honest, it would actually look kind of cool if the helmet was like cheese. But I think that's a stretch to say it's one of the most unique and defining pieces of the Packers' history. I don't know that cheese has really anything to do with Packers' history. The Lambeau Leap, but what the heck, I mean, the Green Wall, or I can't imagine that's anything. Lombardi Trophy, I'm pretty sure is not it, but it does kind of get the gears turning in terms of like a silver kind of color, which could be kind of interesting. But then I kind of thought the only one, when you look at like what are the defining pieces, like meat packing, I can't imagine it would be a meat themed thing. I don't know what you could do with the city or the small town thing, the fan ownership. I don't know how you can make that a uniform. The one that stands out, though, is the Ice Bowl. That's the one thing when I look, using AI or whatever, like give me a list of things that are uniquely iconic, historic for the Packers or whatever. A lot of this is like, it's not a uniform. The Ice Bowl, though, that could be pretty cool. An iced out Packers uniform. I'm just saying. All right, why don't we take a break right here? We'll come back, start looking at some of these games. I do want to actually put it, I usually say in no particular order. I do want to do an order. We'll kind of start with the least interesting games and work our way up. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, why don't we start with games that have no real impact on the Packers one way or another. So I haven't done it yet, but the plan was for yesterday to upload sort of an AI betting podcast of general interest for those that are interested in that kind of stuff. But one of the big themes that is recurring from a betting perspective is that all the, let's call them heavy favorite teams, they've been hitting pretty regularly, and the expectation is that there's going to be a bit of a bounce back, that people are going to be betting too heavily into the favorites and underestimating some of the underdogs, etc. The Patriots are a red-hot team coming up against a Falcons team that nobody really has any respect in. New England also is pretty heavily in the, you could call it luck category, in terms of some people are not quite sold on how elite they are, how elite Drake May is. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know, but I'm just telling you that's the situation. The Patriots have won and covered the spread in 5 consecutive games. Currently in the lead in the AFC East ahead of the Buffalo Bills. Falcons on the other side, very disappointing team, coming off a very disappointing Week 8 embarrassment. Terrible home loss, 34-10. And to make matters worse, that was against the Miami Dolphins, who are a joke, and everybody's talking about everybody getting fired. In fact, their GM did just get fired after their Thursday performance. That's who beat them 34-10. Michael Penix is injured but expected to play. Drake London was removed from the injury report and will play. Couple points to keep in mind here. The Patriots have one of the best, in fact, the second best run defenses in the entire NFL. The Falcons are a run-heavy team. They want to lean on Bijan Robinson. From a matchup perspective, this is an ugly matchup. On the flip side of that, though, the Patriots are not as good at stopping receiving backs, so watch for maybe Bijan to get a little bit more in the passing game. Also, Drake May his dominance has been largely pushing the ball down the field, and Atlanta has been quite good at stopping that. With that said, again, though, a lot of the professional bettors are leaning toward Atlanta, not because they're the better team, but because the Patriots are overvalued. The line has already moved from where I'm looking at it right now. A lot of people were upset with the 6 points to 5.5 points. I'm looking at right now 5 points. So that number has already been pushed pretty heavily in the other direction. Part of that having to do with, again, not buying the Patriots. They've had a laughable schedule that includes the Saints, Titans, Browns, Panthers, and Bills during their winning streak. The Bills obviously being a little bit more impressive. I will say I'm probably going to have a hard time laying these kinds of bets down. A lot of the betting, I think, by professional bettors this week is going to be sort of fading the favorites. I'm going to have a hard time, though, looking at this Patriots team, regardless of the situation, and saying they can't cover 5 points. Penix on the road is garbage. The Falcons got their teeth kicked in by a terrible team. The Patriots look like a competent, well-coached team. I'm going to struggle with stuff like that. I just don't think I can do it. If you bet it and it hits, congratulations, but I don't have that level of courage. That seems crazy to me. Looking at the Texans and Broncos game, Texans are 1.5 point favorites. I've actually got it up to 2 where I'm looking. Texans are in their second of 3 home games in a row. They're if you look at their home record, it's not terrible. Their overall record obviously is not great. They're at 3-4, but at home so far, they lost to Tampa by 1 point. They beat Tennessee 26-0 and then beat the 49ers 26-15. So the defense right now is actually the number 1 defense in football in terms of points and yards. The most they've given up was 27 to the Seahawks, and again, that was on the road. At home right now, the numbers again would be 20, 0, and 15 points given up. Denver also, though, not exactly slouches when it comes to defense. They're 5th in points and yards. One of the big question marks or major points here is Patrick Surtain, the corner for the Denver Broncos, being out in this game. That is a pretty big deal. If Nico Collins and Christian Kirk are both going for Houston, that's a really big one-sided advantage. Broncos are seen as the best pass rush team in football, largely because of the sack numbers. I will point out, sacks a lot of times are a function of coverage, and with Patrick Surtain out, I don't know that you can still put them in that same category, but they currently have somewhat of a historic pass rush. They have 36 sacks on the season, a plus 28 sack differential, and 10 more sacks than the next closest team, which is the Rams. A couple of bet options for you. Texans money line. It's a close enough game to where picking the Texans to win outright might be the better option. The idea here is that you're picking the team with the better quarterback, which would be Stroud in this case. He's coming off what a lot of people thought was his best game of the season this past week. And again, with Patrick Surtain going down, that's seen as a pretty big deal. I think probably a bet that I think I will make is to bet the under. It's currently set at 40, which is already quite low. But I guess 91% of the public money is currently on the over, while DeMeco Ryans is 11-1 under as a home favorite, and it's expected to be a super low-scoring slog. So, again, it's already pretty low, but I don't hate that. With that said, if I were to bet, and again, I don't think I'm going to as far as Texans, Broncos, whatever, it could go either way in that, but teasing the Broncos to 7.5 or 8 points is seen by some as a pretty good option, just if for no other reason than it's going to be such a low-scoring battle. The odds of somebody winning by, a score or more are relatively low. So I think if I were to bet anything, I probably would want to do something like that. By the way, I didn't mention, I probably should. Last week on the picks, I made six bets and won on 4 of them. So it was actually a pretty good week. All right, Jaguars-Raiders, another who cares game from our Packer fan perspective. Pretty uncomfortable game, I think, across the board for people to bet. One of the big issues being these are 2 teams coming off a bye. I think most people view this as benefiting Jacksonville more so. simply because it's such a young team, young coaching staff, to be able to do a little bit of self-scouting and see if we can kind of get this thing back on track. Travis Hunter, though, landing on IR is not great. Brian Thomas, who leads the league in drops, is going to play but is bothered by an injury. Trevor Lawrence, apparently, one of his biggest issues is struggling against zone coverage, particularly cover 3, which the Raiders use quite a bit. Raiders, on the other hand, suffered a brutal 31-0 shutout loss to the Chiefs before their bye. They only got 3 first downs and 95 total yards, just absolutely vicious. The Raiders right now are averaging barely 14 points per game. Geno Smith, a lot of questionable decisions under pressure. Kind of seen as a turnover machine right now. Team is 0-3 when opponents record at least 3 sacks. So it's kind of just two ugly, up in the air, what the heck is going on teams. I think right now, generally, the public is betting more so the Jaguars. The professionals are leaning a little bit more +3 Raiders. One of the general trends here is a historical trend where teams that were shut out on the previous week, technically 2 weeks ago, the previous game, I guess, they tend to cover the spread 61.9% of the time since 2012. So I think the thought is there's so much public money on the Jaguars, it's inflating it probably more than it should be. But again, I don't feel super great about that. Again, though, one of the things I am a little bit more confident in is the under, the low-scoring game here. It's already relatively low at 44.5 to 45. Let me see what mine's sitting at right now. Yeah, 44. The under in these sort of double bye games is 66%. Games following a shutout / bye week, which the Raiders had, are 8-1 on the under since 2009. The Raiders coming off a bye also historically very high on the unders. So again, not feeling great about much in this game, but I probably will do the under in this one as well. Something to keep an eye on too if you're going to be placing a bet over at sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. Brock Bowers currently at 54.5 receiving yards. It's worth noting the Jaguars are susceptible to tight ends. They're 24th in pass DVOA. Bowers put up 103 yards in his only full game this season. He is healthy in this game. Raiders' offense should be pass-heavy against Jacksonville's defense. And so 54 yards is seen as relatively low. So I will I'm going to try to put together a lineup here as we go through this as well. Next up, another game that's irrelevant, Chargers versus Titans. Got a massive mismatch here between the Chargers, who are a legitimate team, the Titans, who are a complete joke. Titans are dead last in the league in scoring, just 13.8 points per game. Third to last in points allowed, 28.8 points per game. Titans are in their worst 50 game against the spread stretch since 2016. They've lost 11 consecutive home games against the spread, which is the longest home against the spread losing streak for any team since the 1970 merger. And Cam Ward is bad, so there's that. Chargers, on the other hand, playoff caliber team, coming off a convincing 37-10 win over the Vikings on Thursday Night Football, which also gives them a little bit of a rest advantage. Jim Harbaugh has actually a very good record while traveling east. Chargers are 8-3 straight up and 7-4 against the spread as road favorites under Harbaugh. He's 10-2 against the spread as road favorites on the East Coast. Chargers' offense is described as electric, should be able to score pretty much at will against the Titans' compromised defense. Titans also dealing with a lot of injury issues, which, as if things weren't bad enough. You got defensive line, Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key. Secondary, you got Snead and Xavier Woods. It's not ideal. Right now, where I'm looking, I got the Chargers -10 here, which is not surprisingly. It looks like from most places it was at 9.5. It's already up to 10. The bottom line is people are looking at a very big number and saying it's not big enough. A lot of people believe it should be closer to -13, -14 points. Not only do the Chargers have the ability offensively to attack a very weak defense, but the Titans don't really have the ability to fight back. I generally don't like betting on the big numbers like this just because of the whole any given Sunday thing. I mean, you've got you got 10 points here, and you'll have, Tennessee end up winning the game by a freaking field goal or something. But I'm going to go against my better judgment. I'm just going to lay like a half a bet on that, 50% of what my standard bet is, just because I'm trying to kind of force some bets here. I don't really like any of these. Indy Pittsburgh is getting a little bit more interesting. Obviously has really nothing to do with us, especially now that Pittsburgh is in our rear window. But Indianapolis is a very interesting team. They're playing really well, and a lot of people think it's kind of fake. This will be similar to the Packers, somewhat more of a tough test. Pittsburgh obviously is an interesting team with Aaron Rodgers and just kind of generally somewhat of an interesting team, in my opinion. Daniel Indiana Jones is getting her done over there, obviously behind a dominant rushing attack. We've got the number one scoring offense in the NFL, averaging 33.8 points per game, which is just ridiculous. They rank first in yards per play, EPA per play, EPA per rush, and success rate. Ranks them as the fourth highest rated offense in history through 8 weeks, according to DVOA. I just don't know how that's possible. I just don't understand. Jonathan Taylor obviously playing at an elite level. He's got multiple 3-touchdown games entering the MVP discussion. A lot of the success of the Colts is behind the strength of their offensive line, which is kind of getting back to what they were in the past. They had a strong offensive line, strong run game behind that, and then just kind of whatever you can build off of that passing-wise. Pittsburgh, obviously, we talked quite a bit. There's something to like about their offense. The problem is the defense. Aaron Rodgers is playing relatively well, but it's largely based on sort of these dink and dunk type of plays, which is really difficult when your defense gives up a bunch of points and you have to come back from behind. Dink and dunk ain't going to cut it. The Indianapolis Colts are on the road 3.5-point favorites. It's actually funny because one of the big bets here is to bet the Steelers. Why? Because of a classic Tomlin spot where he's at home as an underdog, which is exactly what we heard last week. Don't bet against Tomlin at home as an underdog. And what happened? Kind of got freaking smoked. But if you want to play that game again, Tomlin 65.6% against the spread when catching 3 or more points and 84.6% against the spread as a home dog of 3 or more, 11-2-1. So again, we just talked about that last week as one of the things that made me nervous about that Packer game and didn't quite pan out. So maybe that's just credit to the Packers being so good as to overcome that, or maybe the Steelers just, ain't all that. I don't know. Again, I don't love it. I would really rather not. It's one of those kind of wait and see for me, which I know doesn't really make sense because once you see that changes the betting lines. But I want to see, with all the people talking about the Colts aren't for real, I don't know, man. I understand the arguments against, but until I see it, I don't know if I believe it, especially with this Steelers matchup, which again, I mean, the Steelers can be scary. I mean, this could be one of those things where the Steelers have the ability to expose them. If Rodgers is just on freaking fire, they're at home and they just go off. This could be the big Colts get exposed game, which is kind of what, again, all the bettors, the pros are talking about. Like, this could be the week where a lot of these frauds get exposed. This could be a frauds get exposed type of game. But man, do I struggle thinking Jonathan Taylor against the Steelers team and everything the Colts are doing right now. I don't know, man. I struggle with that one. As for the total, the consensus seems to be on the over. Hilariously, every time I look at this, the line is already moved. I tried to make sure to get the most recent data, unlike last time where it was like Wednesday's data and I talked to it on Saturday. I got it all. I got all this together today, and it still already has moved. 50.5 is too low. I'm looking at it right now. It's already sitting at 51.5. But there's two over bets here. One is the over generally, looking at the Colts and the Steelers. The other is to just bet the over for the Colts, the team total of 27.5. Colts are averaging 33.8 points per game. They've hit the number of 27.5 in 7 of their 8 games, and they're going up against a defense that is just bad. Let me see if I can even get this to work, because I think I want to bet that if I can. I want to see what the number's at over here, though. Now, whatever. Maybe if I can bet that later, I will. All right, final game before our last break here. It's all AFC, but it's pretty fun. Kansas City versus Buffalo, seen as the marquee showdown of the week for obvious reasons. Also talked about as game of the year, best rivalry in football, etc., etc. AFC Championship preview. I feel like we talk about that every year. Chiefs, kind of as expected, went from a slow start to being the top team in football again. That, saw that coming a mile away. They're currently 5-3. Very much turned their season around. They're being talked about as the best version of the Chiefs offense we've seen since 2021. They're firing on all cylinders, unstoppable, the whole 9 yards. It's a very well-oiled machine right now. Buffalo, 5-2, tough team to beat at home. Buffalo is at home. Chiefs are 2-point favorites currently. They are coming off a convincing win over the Panthers, where they put up a 40-burger. However, the season has been much more inconsistent. Despite their convincing win, which the Bills tend to do anyways, they're a good team when it comes to beating the living crap out of bad teams, which Packer fans seem to really want that thing. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I love when you can kick your feet up at halftime. I love that. But outside of that ability, Buffalo, a little bit shaky. Not to mention, unlike the Chiefs being talked about as one of the better offenses we've seen, the Bills, it's more about how this is one of the worst Bills defenses we've seen, at least as far as this has been a rivalry between Chiefs-Bills. And it is seen as the weak link in this matchup, looking at the two teams offensively and defensively, which is not great when you're talking about a Chiefs team that is really getting their offense up and running. Ed Oliver for the Bills is out for the season. That is a big loss to an already not great defense. Cornerback Teron Johnson, also questionable with a groin injury. That's a problem. Not being able to get pressure on him and then not being able to cover on the back end. Again, considering those factors we talked about, not great. Now, if they can generate some pressure, Pat Mahomes has not actually been very good against the pressure right now. He has 7 touchdowns and 0 interceptions from a clean pocket, but 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions against pressure. These are against the Bills' numbers. So they're going to have to find a way to do that, and I don't know that they can, but they're going to have to try. Bills' run defense ranks 30th in DVOA. Chiefs did lose Isaiah Pacheco, but they do have Kareem Hunt and Bashard Smith, and they're expected to exploit that weakness in the Bills' defense. On the flip side, though, the Bills do have arguably the best running back in football. I know statistically there is one way out in front, but there is an argument to be made about James Cook when you adjust for volume. The guy is playing incredibly good football. And again, he's not getting any attention because the guy over there in Indianapolis who's getting 60 carries a game. But between James Cook and what he's been able to do, as well as the quarterback's ability to run, it is a very, very good rushing team. But they don't really have the outside weapons. So again, not my favorite to bet at all. I mean, honestly, based on everything we've said, you lean Chiefs. But the problem is there's kind of two sides to this. One is you take all that data and you say -2 for the Chiefs is silly. You absolutely believe in the Chiefs to run up on the Bills. The flip side of that, though, is Mahomes is 1-4 straight up and against the spread versus Josh Allen in the regular season, losing the last 4 consecutive matchups. Bills are a rare home dog. Allen is 65% career against the spread as an underdog. And so, everything in my mind is pointing to the Chiefs being able to handle business, but at the same time, it's a rivalry. They know each other. It's in Buffalo. The Bills, again, they handle this spot well, especially as underdogs. Not to say that they necessarily win, but I don't love anything about it. There is some talk about possibly teasing the Bills to 7.5 or 8. I don't even love that necessarily just because it's going to be such a high-scoring game. I wouldn't be surprised if a blowout happens one way or another. Again, that brings us back to the total, though. The over is 4-0, at least in playoff matches between Mahomes and Allen. Bills are expected to be super aggressive offensively because they know they have to score 30-plus to win. The Bills have scored over 30 points in 75% of their last 20 games with starters playing in full. The total is designated as a shootout. It's currently sitting at 52.5. So you're looking at, 26 points. I don't know. I don't love that either, but again, if I were a betting man, that might be the direction I would go. But I'll probably just stay away from this. One of the big talking points here is Josh Allen rushing. If we pop back over to our buddies at Prize Picks, Josh Allen is at 40.5 yards. There is, as you may have heard yesterday if you listened to that podcast, a notion that Josh Allen kind of saves his legs intentionally or otherwise for these big games. Allen has rushed 11 times per game against the Chiefs, which is his career high against any team. The Chiefs have currently allowed a ton of yards to quarterbacks. Allen has 39, 42, 55, 68, 72, and 88 yards in recent matchups. That is to say, only one time would the less than actually hit, and it would be very close. Again, 40.5. His lowest against the Chiefs is 39. So I will be betting more on Josh Allen rushing yards. Another interesting one, if you wanted to, would be Josh Allen rushing attempts. I might go ahead and double up on those because this is currently sitting at 8. I think I'm just going to do it. I don't know. We got some other options here. I think another one I'm going to add to our list here is Rashee Rice receptions. It's currently at 7 receptions. They like to use him a lot behind the line of scrimmage. There's some talk about the fact that there's a lot of confidence he'll hit 5 before the end of the first half. He's also crucial to the Chiefs' red zone success, especially when you're talking about probably a shootout of a game. I'm going to go ahead and add Rashee Rice more than 7 receptions to the list here. And then another one I'm going to add here is Khalil Shakir more than 50.5. Got experts saying to take him over 60, and we've got him at 50.5 over at Prize Picks. Shakir has had 19 targets in 2 meetings against the Chiefs last season. You're talking about the top receiver again in a shootout, and you're talking 50 yards. So I'm going to go ahead and add that one as well. All right, why don't we take a break? We'll come back and look at a couple of the more interesting, important matchups. We'll be right back. Alrighty, Saints and the Rams. Obviously not interesting from the standpoint of presumably being a good game, but the Rams are of general interest, so there you go. This is obviously expected to be a one-sided matchup with the Rams currently 14-point favorites. Puka Nacua should be okay to go in this game. He excels against zone coverage, which the Saints like to run a lot. Puka Nacua ranks first in the NFL this year with a 91.8 PFF grade against zone coverage. Rams also get an offensive line back that'll help Matt Stafford. They have a strong defensive unit. They are 3rd in defensive scoring, 8th in DVOA against the run. Saints are going to switch things up at quarterback. You got rookie quarterback Tyler Shaw, who's going to be taking over for Spencer Rattler. Shaw is seen as a statue who's not a mover at all. Saints' offensive line is being decimated by injuries. Alvin Kamara playing with an ankle injury. So there's just not a lot to like about the Saints at all. Not a lot of high confidence picks either way, betting for or against the Rams or Saints for that matter. I'm just going to you can make the case either way. I'm not going to make the case either way because I don't want to try to sway anyone into nonsense. However, one interesting prop bet would be potentially to take the Rams to lead after every quarter. Saints are 1-7 against the spread in the first quarter, worst in the NFL. They've trailed at the end of 27 of 28 quarters in their 7 losses this season. So if you're able to find that prop bet, that might be one that'll be a little bit more valuable than, for example, picking the Rams to win or anything like that. Then we got 49ers and Giants. 49ers on the road are 2.5-point favorites. 49ers 5-3 are traveling cross-country for the 4th road game in 5 weeks, which is obviously a vicious schedule, especially for a West Coast team, especially traveling all the way to the East Coast this week. They're coming off a really bad loss to the Houston Texans. Obviously, they've got a bit of an injury crisis. A lot of their top players are, and we've talked about it a lot, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, etc., are out, injured, IR. Don't know what quarterback is going to be playing, which makes things complicated for the 49ers or for betting for or against. I don't know necessarily who you think would be much better. I mean, I tend to like Brock Purdy. I know most people think he's kind of a joke, but whether it's Purdy or Mac Jones, I don't know. Offense has kind of struggled in general. 49ers offense managed only 7 drives of 4 plays or less last week. Kyle Shanahan, even, he who has been seen as the greatest offensive mind of our generation or whatever, not really, but kind of, even he's starting to get criticized for his tactics or whatever being embarrassing. On the other side, the Giants, who are maybe not in as good of a situation as the 49ers generally or whatever, I think the spirits are up a little bit. Jackson Dart has kind of infused a lot of excitement for them. Kind of pleasantly surprised, I think, a lot of people with his play, both with his arm and with his legs. Cam Scatterbo going is rough. Emotionally for the team and whatnot. He's kind of I hate to call him a leader because he's so young, but one of those guys that motivates the team. He's described as a cornerstone of the offensive identity, hype man, glue, whatever. Bigger issue, though, generally is the Giants' defense, which is kind of just trash. A lot of injuries in general. Cornerbacks, Paulson Adebo and Cordell Flott are apparently going to be out in this game. Flott with a concussion. What the Giants do have is pass rush, and they're going to have to rely on that. 49ers do not have pass rush, which is where perhaps Dart could be having a pretty good game if they're not able to get any pressure on Jackson Dart. As for picks against the spread, again, not a lot of confidence. You can make an argument in either direction. 49ers being the better coached team. Some people feel the line is very, very fishy, that they're trying to entice people, and that the Giants are the professional bet to make. I don't know. Again, I'm kind of just staying away from it. However, again, I don't know why I like total bets so much. I think it's just maybe it's just the week that it is. The total for this game is enticing. It's at 48.5, which is not a insanely high score. I mean, you figure, again, that's 24 points per opponent or per team. And you've got 2 teams with decimated defenses. Giants have hit the over in their last 3 games. Giants offense is playing above average by EPA since Dart started. 49ers defense is unable to generate pressure, allowing the Giants to put up points. And again, from the 49ers side, it's not perfect, but they're a fully capable team going up against a defense that does have pass rush, which could cause a problem. But with a well-coached team, you should be able to mitigate some level of pass rush. It's not like it's a generational pass rush or anything, especially considering everything else is pretty well decimated. So I think I am going to do that again. It's going to be an all-over week. That's just all I'm going to do is bet the over in all these games. Couple thoughts for prize picks. Number 1, Jackson Dart makes sense. In fact, it makes a lot of sense when you look at prize picks. The recommendation is over 280 passing yards as sort of a prop bet. Prize picks has them at 206. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw down on that one, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. Dart has an aggressive deep ball. 49ers can't generate pressure. Dart has also scored a touchdown in 4 of his last 5 starts, making his anytime touchdown prop a consideration. Next up, we got Seattle and Washington. This is going to be the Sunday night game. Washington Commanders will be at home. Seahawks traveling across the country, 3-point favorites on the road. Game is a classic conflict between a high-performing road favorite coming off a rest week and a desperate home dog potentially getting their starting quarterback back. 5-2 Seahawks are seen as the superior road team, top 8 team in the league. Seattle already considered an elite road team. They've won their past 9 road games and are 10-1 straight up on the road since the start of 2024. Head coach Mike McDonald's teams are 5-1 straight up and 4-1-1 against the spread when playing on the East Coast. Seahawks coming off a bye provides extra rest and prep time. The situation playing as a road favorite coming out of a bye week is historically lucrative, 95, 63, and 4 against the spread, which is 60%. That's since 1999. Sam Darnold having a great season, playing at up and around an MVP caliber level so far. Unbelievable levels of efficiency. 7th best passer rating in the league. The offense has been terrific. Jackson Smith and Jigba set up for another big game. Should be able to attack Washington's weak secondary. Seattle's defense pretty stout. Number 1 run defense in the NFL, allowing just 75.7 yards per game. Washington is a run-heavy team, so that's going to work to their advantage. Commanders are in what's called a kitchen sink game, desperate to avoid falling to 3-6, coming off a short week after being defeated 28-7 by the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Jaden Daniels in prime time, 7-3 straight up, and games played 4 p.m. Eastern Time or later. Washington dealing with quite a few injuries. Terry McLaurin out after re-injuring his quad. Laramie Tunsil is questionable. And to top it all off, the Commanders' defense ranks near the bottom in passing categories, is atrocious and viewed as old and slow, ranking as the oldest defense in the league. You've struggled to prevent separation and cover wide receivers. With all that said, and this one I might actually lean toward, if you had to pick against the spread, Seahawks to me makes sense. I mean, I've said before, -3 is basically a coin toss in my mind. Seattle is a historical against the spread winner as a road favorite coming off a bye, 60.1% since 99, as we talked about. Sam Darnold playing at a high level. Commander secondary is poor. Washington offense gutted by injuries. Washington, a rushing team going up against the number 1 run defense team. You got some people saying Seattle should be 10-point favorites in this game. So the idea here is, I think generally pick the Seattle Seahawks at -3. If it gets to -3.5 or more, you're kind of looking more at a money line bet. In other words, just pick the Seahawks to win. But I'll take the -3 here. It's just feeling, you never know. I mean, Washington's capable. They're at home, that whole thing. But it feels like a mismatch. And 3 points feels a little bit closer to a toss-up than what seems to be reality. And finally, we get into the big 3. So we got Chicago versus Cincinnati we'll start with first. Got a little bit of good news here. It's been mostly bad news, but a little bit of good news in terms of it sounds like Flacco is going to be playing. He's probably going to be playing injured. I did not expect him to play in this game, but it looks like he's going to. Cincinnati Bengals are at home with the Bears at 2.5-point favorites. It's a little surprising to me, I guess, but I guess the Bengals are just completely awful on defense. You got 2 teams coming off of losses here. Bengals 3-5, coming off an embarrassing 39-38 loss to the Jets that they absolutely should have won. Complete choke job at the end of that game. Bears 4-3, coming off a 30-6 beatdown loss against the Ravens. Again, I'm not 100. Let me just double check here. We'll see what the wording is. Bengals is planning to start. So planning to start is the strongest language right now. Flacco is still officially questionable with an AC joint sprain in his right shoulder. There was optimism, blah, 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 blah. So I don't think it's 100%, but it's certainly higher than I thought it was going to be. I don't know how much that plays into it. I still think people are underestimating. I shouldn't even say Joe Flacco. They're underestimating the Cincinnati Bengals offense with Joe Flacco. The consensus is, yeah, they got some old beat-up loser at quarterback or whatever. The Bengals are averaging 35.5 points when Flacco is the quarterback and 434 yards per contest without turning the ball over with him at quarterback. So, again, Flacco with the injury, if he even plays, maybe that's going to be a problem. I don't know. But I absolutely would not underestimate the Bengals offense at the very least. By the way, it was 30-16, not 30-6. The Bears loss last week. They started off getting 6 points early, and then Baltimore pretty much just ran all over them at that point. They did end up getting an additional 10, obviously, but after starting 6-0, it was basically off to the races for the Ravens. Caleb Williams has seen a dip in play recently, throwing only 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions his last 4 games. Talked a little bit about that already. compared to 7 touchdowns and 1 interception in the first 3. One source notes that Williams is not a winner, and his receivers don't trust him, which is hilarious because that was the same, essentially the thought last year. The Bears' run game has broken out. However, let me just confirm this because I saw it, and I just want to make sure I saw it correctly. Yeah, DeAndre Swift with a groin injury will not play in Chicago's Week 9 game against the Bengals. So the run game has been somewhat of a strength for this team. They're losing their starting running back. By the way, I think every single one of their pass catchers is hurt. Luther Burden has a concussion and will not play. DJ Moore will play, but has a hip/groin injury. Cole Kmet will play. He has a back injury. Roma Dunze will play. He has a heel injury. So only Burden's not playing, but everybody's banged up. Bengals defense obviously is terrible. Dumpster fire, dead last in points, 32 points per game almost, giving up 152 rush yards per game. Over the last 4 games, they've allowed 33.5 points and 418 yards per contest. That's kind of shocking. They're dead last in DVOA, struggle to defend the tight end position, allowing 18.3 fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. Expectedly, the Bears are thought to have a pretty good offensive performance against them. They've scored 25 or more in points in 5 of their 7 games this season. So, unfortunately, the bet in this game is leaning toward the Bears at -2.5. Bears are not only seen as the better all-around team, but the Bears' offense against this defense, 2.5 points, I think, has got people kind of scratching their head going, yeah, right. I personally don't love it. The 2 reasons, and I'm not going to bet the Bengals, but the 2 reasons, and I'm trying not to just be biased here, but you've got 2 big things to overcome. Number 1, the Bears have to be not only good, but consistently good. And that's a hard thing when you have an inconsistent quarterback. Number 2, for every point you score, you have to stop the Bengals from scoring. And the Bengals offense is good at scoring. So I don't love it. I'm not saying I think the Bengals win. I don't know who wins, but I will not be betting that. With that said, however, shockingly, I am considering the over in this game. It's currently set at 51, which is already quite high. But you figure 25 points each. I don't know. I probably won't touch it, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to. But it's certainly a consideration, and I could see this getting 30-plus points on both sides of the ball. I could also see this being Caleb is dog crap, and the Bengals either don't have Flacco or Flacco with a busted-up shoulder, and it ends up being a low-scoring game, and I'm not going to mess with it. I think I'm going to add another to this list here. I don't know if I can add any more to this, but Caleb Williams, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. They even have it listed here as being, it's called Demons and Goblins. If it's got a goblin, you're going to get lesser odds, but it's going to be an easier bet to make. But Bengals allow the second most passing touchdowns per game of any defense, so I think I'm going to throw that one on there. Additionally, if there's any other props, I might need to make a new bet here, but I got 6 on this, which is probably too many, but I'm having fun. We're all having fun here. All right, second to last game, excluding the Green Bay Packers game, we got Detroit versus Minnesota. Unfortunately, probably not going to be a very good game. I hope it is. I hope Minnesota shocks the world here, but Detroit at home, 9 points. Honestly, not as massive as I would have thought, but 9-point favorites at home. Lions 5-2 against the spread, viewed as a dominant team and a wagon right now coming off their bye week. Lions offense described as a machine. They are looking unstoppable, pretty classic. Average 30 points per game against the Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores. Dan Campbell's teams coming off of byes have been rock solid. They're well prepared. They are 15-4 against the spread with a rest advantage. Jared Goff has been pretty invincible at home, 8-0 against the spread versus the Vikings in his career at home, which is the best against the spread mark of any NFC North quarterback against Minnesota in the last 20 years. Lions defense led by Kelvin Shepard is held up despite injuries. They're expected to be healthier with Brian Branch returning from suspension and Terrion Arnold returning from a shoulder injury. Vikings are going to thrust J.J. McCarthy back into the spotlight, which is probably going to be a downgrade at quarterback. It's going to be a rough re-entry against a strong defense. We've seen McCarthy's floor, and it was pretty horrendous. He ranks dead last in the NFL with a 66.7 passer rating among quarterbacks with 50-plus plays. And he also has more interceptions than touchdowns, which is not a great feat, if you will. Vikings' offensive line is kind of in shambles right now, continues to be ravaged by injuries. Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, kind of the strength of the offensive line, both questionable with knee injuries. McCarthy struggled with his high pressure-to-sack ratio, which is over 40%, which is insane. And, of course, there is a real pass rush threat here with the Lions. Vikings defense run by Brian Flores has been kind of pathetic. It was supposed to be a great defense, but has struggled, allowing 37 points to the Chargers, 28 points to the Eagles. The Vikings' run defense has not been good at all. They're ranking bottom 10 in multiple advanced analytics, creating a horrible matchup against the Lions' rushing offense. The spread initially opened up a little lower at Lions minus 7.5, moved the Lions to minus 8.5. That has been pushed to 9 or even 9.5 in some places. Probably a lot to do with the Carson Wentz injury. With that said, the more confident bet here tends to be the Lions at the minus 9, which I think I'm going to bet that. Goff and Campbell are 8-0 against the spread against the Lions. Talked about a lot of this already. Lions off a bye. McCarthy is returning to face an elite pass rush. Lions' strong rushing offense against a bad Vikings run defense. Again, I generally don't like the big ones like this, but it's as soon as I saw it, I thought, I don't know about that whole 9 points, dude. It feels like it should be bigger than that. I would have guessed 12, 13-ish points, but it's also a little bit of a hedge on my part because if the Vikings keep it less than that, obviously, 8 is not super comforting, but presumably if it's within, 4 points or something, at least then you feel like, freaking Lions, you suck. As for prize picks, I think I'm going to take Justin Jefferson more than 74.5 yards. It kind of seems a little high, but not really. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba was another one I considered. He was almost at 100 yards, and I backed off of it. 74.5 yards. Justin Jefferson averages 121 yards per game in his 10 career games against the Lions. It's probably low because of McCarthy, but still. He has 3 games over 180 receiving yards against Detroit. So, I mean, the McCarthy thing makes me a little bit nervous, but, I mean, that seems... We're talking, what? He's at 60% of his career average? That seems really low. I think I'm going to add to that J.J. McCarthy pass attempts. Reason being, obviously, I expect Detroit to score a ton, and so the Vikings are going to have no choice but to throw the ball a lot. So it's currently at 31 pass attempts, so I'm going to take J.J. McCarthy over 31 pass attempts. I did have to start a new card here, by the way, just because you can only do 6, so we'll just throw it on a new card. All right, final game, Green Bay Packers versus Carolina Panthers. Hopefully a very, very good game. No reason for this one to be stressing me out. We're going to be heading over to Grandma's. Hopefully it's just a nice, good, relaxing, fun game. Packers, talk about a little surprising and a little bit nerve-wracking. 13-point favorites in this matchup. Heavy home favorites against the Panthers, dealing with significant injuries and recent poor performances. Line was initially 10.5 and saw some massive movement. Green Bay Packers 5-1-1 coming off 3 straight wins. They won last week after trailing 16-7 at halftime. Jordan Love been playing at a very, very high level, throwing the ball well. Packers offense expected to cruise to a win by controlling the run game, utilizing Josh Jacobs and leveraging the play-action game. They rank first in the NFL in net yards per play. Green Bay's defense is considered solid against the run, ranking 3rd in the league against the run. Their defensive line ranks 7th in overall run defense grade. Major talking point, and this even came up, I know that they had talked to Micah Parsons about this, but could it potentially be a trap game with the Eagles coming up next week? Could the Packers be looking ahead as a look-ahead game? Teams with a high win percentage who are double-digit favorites and have an opponent with a 70% win percentage on deck are 41% against the spread. Now, remember, we're talking against the spread. We're not talking about necessarily losing. But in terms of whether or not the Packers will be able to dominate a team, when, again, this is all we're essentially doing is saying, you're a good team, you're up against a bad team, and in 2 weeks you're going up against a good team. 41%. And 41% is not that big of a deal. I mean, we're talking close to 50%, but still, it's a thing. Panthers are seen as a tough team to bet. They're coming off an embarrassing loss of 40-9. They're presumably getting Bryce Young back from his ankle injury he missed last week. The thought being, even if he's playing, which is expected, he's not going to be 100%. There could be some mobility issues, which could hurt him, especially against the Packers' pass rush. Offensive line is extremely banged up, as we've already discussed. Panthers are best when they're running the football, and their wins came when Rico Dowdle was carrying the load, which I just saw again. The expectation is the Panthers are primarily going to be running with Rico Dowdle. However, without a healthy offensive line established, the run against Green Bay's strong run defense is going to be extremely difficult. Apparently, the bet does lean toward Packers at -13, but the number is a little bit too high, so most people are avoiding it. It could be another hedge spot, just in terms of, listen, if I throw a few bucks down on the Panthers to cover the spread and I lose that money, I'm probably going to be okay with that. But in favor of betting the Packers at -13, Panthers viewed as overmatched. They're 0-7 straight up when facing a team above 500 on the board, losing by 17.7 points per game on average. Green Bay is expected to control the game and cover the number. The Packers' elite run defense counters the Panthers' best path to scoring, which is the run game. As far as the total, the consensus seems to be to bet the under, which is currently at 40. What is it at here? Yeah, 44. I don't super love that, so I'm going to probably stay away from it. But the idea being, and it kind of makes sense, especially with what a lot of Packer fans feel is the case with the Packers, where they tend to let off the gas. So in other words, even if everything comes true and the Packers are kind of dominating a team, they tend to not just keep their foot down on the accelerator. So if the Panthers are kind of getting bludgeoned and they're forced to abandon the run and try to pass and it's not working, the Packers are probably not going to go score. I think I am going to bet the Panthers here at +13, just because it's freaking why not? You know what I mean? And if I'm wrong, it'll be the best handful of dollars I've ever lost. All right, that's all. I do need a couple extra player props here because I've only got 2 and they're both on the same team. So let me see if I can grab a couple extras for our prize picks bets. All right, here we go. We're going to circle back to that Chiefs game, which I already have a bunch on this Chiefs game, but we're going to add another one here. With Isaiah Pacheco being ruled out, Kareem Hunt is projected to handle the majority of the running back duties. The Bills' run defense is terrible, currently 29th in EPA per rush. The advice being given is to take Kareem Hunt over 47.5 yards. Prize Picks has him at 44.5, so we'll be going more than 44.5 rush yards. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. So our Prize Picks of the week: Brock Bowers, more than 54.5 yards. Josh Allen, more than 41.5 rush yards. Rashee Rice, more than 7 receptions. Khalil Shakir, more than 50.5 receiving yards. Jackson Dart, more than 206.5 passing yards. Caleb Williams, more than 1.5 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson with more than 74.5 receiving yards. J.J. McCarthy, more than 31 passing attempts. Kareem Hunt, more than 44.5 rushing yards. I want to peek at what they have for Rico Dowdle. I'm just curious. 13.5 rush attempts. I'll leave it. I wanted to see if they maybe had it closer to 50-50 between Dowdle and Hubbard, but they don't. 13.5 compared to 6 for Chuba Hubbard. I think I'm going to do one more hedge here. I shouldn't, but I'm going to. I'm going to do Matthew Golden for less than 28.5 yards. That feels like a pretty relatively big number. I mean, I guess you can get that in one reception, but I don't know. It feels like, especially with Watson coming back, Golden is just being pushed more and more to the back burner with Tucker Kraft, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, even Savion Williams. Do they even have him on here? They don't. was going to say, you put him at like 6 yards, I'll take that. And again, if he ends up with a bunch of yards, has his first breakout game, I'm fine not hitting on this one. So, all right, there we go. I'm going to leave it at that. You all have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow for Victory Monday. Have a good one. Oh, wait, by the way, here is a special song request from the one and only Garrett. Have a good one. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
South Dakota boy with lightning in his cleats, Jack Gribbett from state, now he's hard to beat. Number 85 in green and gold, breaking tackles, watch his story unfold. When they think they got him down, he's already crossed that first down ground. Fast like a freight train, can't catch his fade. King of yak, lead defenders played. Gone in a heartbeat, gone in a flash. Breaking through the line like a thunderclap crash. I do that, yeah, I do this. Fast like a freight train, that's how craft moves. Oh yeah. Small town roots, but he's built for the show. Lambeau Field lights, he's ready to go. Catch it clean, then he turns on the speed. Yards after contact, that's all that he needs. Defensive backs in his rear view now. Can't stop that jackrabbit somehow. Fast like a freight train, can't catch his fade. King of yak, leaving defenders played. Gone in a heartbeat, gone in a flash. Breaking through the line like a thunderclap crash. I do that, yeah, I do this. Fast like a freight train, that's how crab moves. White harmonies, call and response, Tucker From Timberlake to the frozen tundra, they said he couldn't, but he knew he would. Now watch number 85 make every Sunday look so good. Fast like a freight train, can't catch his fade.